a non-linear pedagogy, and we spoke about skill a few moments ago. This to me is a great textbook definition of skill, talking about the role of skilled behavior and understanding that it's the coordination of a functional solution. So a functional solution is something that works. Take a finish. We can finish however we want. If the movement is functional and it leads to success, it works. Doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't need to match this idealized view we have in our head as coaches as to what different skills should supposedly look like. And of course, I think this is most relevant in shooting. And I used to have this too, where I thought that players all had to shoot in very similar ways, or I thought there are things within the jump shot which had to be the same. An even easier way to understand skill, and a one-sentence definition, is that skill is the relationship between the player and their environment. And that's it, the relationship. So it's constantly interacting, and what that implies is that we cannot separate the player from their environment. So if we're doing drills and a lot of things in practice where they're not containing this and facing the same constraints, which I shared a few slides ago, if they're not facing these things in practice, then how are they skills going to emerge in a functional manner? Now, everything I'm doing is based on research, and what it specifically comes from is a field known as ecological dynamics, which we're going to get into shortly. And all this stuff is accessible. So when I first started going down this rabbit hole, I just had no idea how deep I would go. And a lot of these studies are actually easily accessible on the internet. And the more I did research, the more I found. And there are just so many different things that we can access, and it's all empirically based. So everything I am telling you right now, I really want to reiterate that it's not my opinion. The dominant approach to coaching, the traditional approach, the reason why it's so entrenched is because all we have to support that is opinions. And I want to move the whole basketball world away from this. So as opposed to coaching just based on what we think is best, we can actually combine our experience with all this evidence and the abundance of information which tells us how athletes, and specifically basketball players, can more effectively learn. So, ecological dynamics, what is it? This is now the contemporary approach to how we view skill acquisition, and it's rapidly growing all over the world in different sports. And this isn't specific just to basketball, it's specific to human life, and what this actually does is look at how we move as human beings. So, ecological dynamics comes from these two fields, dynamical systems and ecological psychology. Now, I'm going to try and talk about this for a minute, but this is a very complex topic. So I put this here so you can do your own research and have a look after this clinic. What dynamical systems theory informs us is that movements are self-organizing in nature. So if I was to pick up my water bottle right here and drink it, my brain does not have the technique stored inside my body, and my brain is not telling my fingers, my wrist, my hands what to do. Even just in my arm alone, I have hundreds of different ways I can move it. I have different degrees of freedom, and the degrees of freedom are the joints, the muscles, the tissues, the bones. So obviously in a complex game like basketball, there are so many different ways we can move. So the game moves so quickly that the brain does not have time to decide on the movement. We act and we self-organize in the presence of constraints. So that's a really important part of dynamical systems, looking at how we actually move as humans. Ecological psychology is a different field, looking at specifically the role of perception-action coupling. So what this means is that, of course, we're moving and we're self-organizing, but what is it that we are seeing within our environment that shapes how we move? And this is the perception-action coupling part. So really simple, we see and we do. So as I'm walking right here, I am perceiving information in my environment, I'm seeing there's space, and as I walk, as I'm moving, I'm perceiving more information. So picture a fast break in basketball. A player's caught the ball, they're going down the court, they're constantly perceiving and they're constantly acting, and a new solution is continuously emerging. And this is a cycle which never ends until we die, in everything we do in human life. So you can very quickly understand, coaches, the problem and the flaws with the dominant approach, where the whole focus is not on perception but on action. And what coaches are hoping is that we can train the action part and teach these techniques and then plug it in the right time within the game. But it doesn't work like that, because any technique that's not trained in context, it has to be relearned in context. And I've never met a coach who said that they have enough time in practice. It's just the reality of the constraints we're dealing with. Now, this is a guy, Nikolai Bernstein. He was pioneer of dynamical systems theory, so you can definitely check him out if you want to do more research. The first experiment he did went back to 1927 in Soviet Russia, and that basically was one of the most influential studies shaping motor skills today. And ecological psychology, of course, as I mentioned. A very easy way of understanding ecological psychology is, I want to give you an example of these 3 players. So let's picture it's 7 seconds left in the 4th quarter, and all these guys have possession at the top of the key, and all their players are spaced in the same location. Nikola, Steph, and Giannis would all do very different things in that scenario. Why? Because they're all unique individuals. And they're all perceiving different opportunities for action within their environment in that possession. And that is known as an affordance, an invitation for action. So every player perceives things differently. And this is why I don't believe in fundamentals, because fundamentals are merely averages. And it's assuming that everything works the same for every player. But all of us as humans are different, especially as basketball players. So one player might perceive space in Steph Curry's instance as an opportunity to shoot, right? So he sees space, he sees a gap, he's going to try and really quickly self-organize to shoot. Whereas Giannis might see space as an opportunity to drive, and Nikola sees it as an opportunity to try and create an advantage and pass. And this is the complexity. The game of basketball is faced with affordances that constantly appear and disappear. So again, a pick and roll, let's say I'm handling the ball, I might have an opportunity to reject an affordance. But how I do that is going to be very different to every one of you guys. My body is different. As I start to reject, a new affordance might appear a second later. Another affordance might disappear. So the whole game is constantly presented by an affordance landscape that's changing the whole time. So the reality is, does the dominant approach to practice prepare players for this complexity of what they're facing within the game environment? Now, this is a nice example of perception-action coupling. This came from some work I did for the Trailblazers earlier in the year, where I was looking at shooting. And even in a task like shooting, which traditionally in basketball is always done 1-on-0, every shot is a complex decision. Am I open? Do I have a teammate who is more open? Maybe there's a more attractive affordance to drive, and I could get a layup instead of a shot. So this is where we must think about how can these things be recreated within our practice environments. And this is a great quote from Keith Davids. He is one of the pioneers of ecological dynamics, and he says, players can't adapt to an environment they don't inhabit. So if they are not living within this environment and they're facing this constantly in their practices, how can we as coaches expect them to be successful when it comes to game day? So what does this mean for coaching? Well, ecological dynamics, it fundamentally alters the way we see ourselves as coaches. And again, I use a quote from Keith where he talks about coaches, instead of being instructors, we're architects of rich learning environments. So as opposed to always being the one with all the answers, we are creating environments in practice which allow players to adapt. They're variable in nature, and players can move and learn to move in new ways based on the constantly changing constraints. Now, this is kind of the roots of what we are going to get into during the course of today. So ecological dynamics, I very briefly explained it. This is a theory for human movement. What this leads to specifically is ignore differential learning for now, the constraint-led approach. So the constraint-led approach is a method we can use as coaches that's based on an ecological dynamics framework. So the CLA specifically, it gives us more practical ideas whether we're working with beginners, professional players. The CLA gives us ideas of how we can coach in a way that respects what ecological dynamics is all about. Okay, it's a very specific theory. So a lot of the time when I do clinics, I ask coaches to think about, do you have a theory or a theoretical framework to account for how you coach, right? And for me, this is what this does. It's very powerful. If we don't have a theory, we're very reliant upon things like, well, we've always done it this way, or this is my opinion. By having a theory, we don't need to resort to that anymore, because we have empirical evidence in regards to what we know works best. So I've been speaking for a bunch of time, and I'm not going to be speaking as much of that for the rest of today. From here on now, I want to be hearing a lot from you guys. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want you to work with someone different, and I want you to see if you can identify as many different constraints as you can that are relative to individual task and environment. Now, I did show them on that Olaseni slide, but I only had a few. There were way more. So what this task will involve you doing is to think deeply about what these different constraints are. Now remember, just as a prompt, individual are related to the player. Task related to the game itself and your practices. Environment could be something like the weather, but it could also be something like social media. So there's lots of different things. We are going to spend 2 minutes on this, and then we're going to feed back and see as many different constraints as we can identify. The timer is going to be here so you can check it. Go. If you're stuck, feel free to ask me and I'll come and help. One minute 30. 25 seconds. Great one. Great one. And time. Excellent. So guys, what we're going to do is we're going to go around the room, and I'd love for you guys to give one example from each different category of constraint. If you get it wrong, it's no problem. This is a safe learning environment. And if you're stuck, it's no worry. Maybe you have one, maybe you have two, no problem at all. Mark, can we start with you at the back, please?
Well, you sort of stole from yours, which was the time constraint.
Fantastic. A time constraint in practice or game. So in a game, that would be like a shot clock. In practice, it could be you saying, all right, there's 7 seconds to this one-on-one. Would that be individual environmental task, guys, time? What category task? Exactly, guys. That would be a task constraint. Great example. Guys, let's move on.
Individual tasks, accountability.
Accountability. Okay, so let's see if we can be more specific. What's one way you could foster accountability within a practice? Shot selection, for sure. That's a great example. Individual environmental task. Shot selection.
Individual, because it's accountability, right?
Good question. Individual is solely related to each individual in terms of a physical feature. So height, weight, wingspan. I've given you 3. It would actually be task because it's related to the game itself. shot selection. That's a very, very powerful one. Give you an example. You're playing a one-on-one, and we can only score in the smile or a three-point shot. The mid-range you cannot score from. Think about the movements that will emerge within that one-on-one versus if you just say you can do whatever you want. So that's an example of using constraints purposefully within a one-on-one. Then maybe, instead of only manipulating the task constraint, you manipulate individual. How? Just by changing matchups every single one-on-one. Playing against the 6'5" defender or against the 6 foot defender. Very different solutions will emerge. Playing against the fast versus a slow defender. Very different solutions. So the idea is that as we go throughout this activity, we understand these constraints. I want you guys thinking about, all right, how could I be manipulating these within my practice sessions? Okay, that's kind of why we're going through this activity. Great stuff, guys. Fellas, can we come to you next, please?
Past experience.
Past experiences. That's a really interesting one. And I think that would be a confluence of, I'd say it would actually be somewhere in between both. If I was to put that somewhere though, how do I put it individual? And I'll be talking like memory, maybe what you remember being successful in. So that could be like a scout report, like a tendency. So you know another team, you know one player can't shoot. You remember that, that's going to affect the movement solutions. Instead of closing out and going really aggressive, probably you're going to go close out short. Great example. Guys, what did you say? I'm coming to my mum.
I'm guessing maybe team play.
Team play, okay, let's try and be more specific. What does team play mean?
So let's say the coach suggests the strategy.
Excellent. And this is, I'm really glad you said that because this is what's coming on to what we're speaking about today with conceptual offense and defense. And this is a big one, how we actually play the game of basketball itself on offense and defense. That would be task. That would be an example of task. Guys right here?
Ground.
Fantastic. What one would that be?
Environment.
Exactly. Environment. Great one. Crowd, noise, pressure, all of that environment. Guys.
We had in the environment, we had temperature, crowd, ball, referee.
Perfect. All correct. All correct. Great stuff. And lastly here, guys.
Image.
Image. What do you mean by image?
So players are very concerned about their image. Obviously, players nowadays they don't want to look bad on defense.
Sure.
They want to look good on offense.
Yep.
And even down to what they look like, what they're wearing.
So this is a really interesting one. I actually think this is the most influential type of environmental constraint, and I call it a form of life. And I'll give you an example. Let's imagine in Lithuania, kids growing up, basketball is the national sport. Everyone strives to be on the national team. It's number one. So kids will do whatever it takes to play basketball. If a kid doesn't like practice, doesn't matter, maybe a coach yells at them, doesn't matter. 50 kids will replace him on the team. Okay? So another great example of forms of life, picture Brazil, Brazilian soccer. What is synonymous with Brazilian soccer players, football players? I need to stop saying soccer. Brazilian football players, skillful behaviors, fakes. But how does that happen? If we were to take Brazilian coaches and we were move them to England, would those behaviors emerge? No way, because it's in the environment, the presence of samba, bossa nova, the favelas, poverty. So this approach goes so deep. And what this means is that there's no copy and paste as coaches. What we see working in Serbia could be completely irrelevant within the UK. Why? For that reason. The forms of life and the environment completely different. So these are just some examples of some ones I have. I don't know why, yeah, there we go. So you can see all these constraints are always present. So now as we start to get more practical, when we understand these, and this is a great activity to do these in your clubs, when we think about as many different of these variables as we can, we then think about, okay, how can we design and consider these in our practices and in how we approach games? Now, the most relevant one for you guys by far is this, task constraints. So when I talk about manipulating these and changing constraints, the easiest way we can do that is with the task constraints, because they're the ones which are most easily changed. Things like individual constraints, it's a lot harder. A strength and conditioning coach could do it, but it takes longer, right? We could change a kid's mood immediately if we yell and scream at them, right? So it's having an awareness of how these things are always interacting, shaping the skills that emerge. And this is a great quote from Renshaw, another leading professor within this space. And this is a great quote I use to justify this approach. If being successful in the basketball game requires players to be combating these constraints and self-organizing successfully, then why would we not practice in a way where these constraints are also present? It seems much more common sense when we consider that. And this is the whole constraint-led approach. So we've got Newell's model, the 3 different constraint categories. When we combine that with ecological dynamics, perception, action, coupling, the relationship between the player and their environment, that's how skills emerge. So what this tells us is that skills are not techniques, skills are not things which are stored internally, skills emerge. And they're always different, always changing, as a result of all these things ever present. And what I've done on this slide, guys, is I've just shown you the easiest ways I manipulate constraints in my practice. So for instance, individual constraints, what we do in my practices at both Paris and college in Italy, we constantly move players around. So as opposed to players always being in the same basket or playing one-on-one over lots of possessions against the same player, we're moving around the whole time. So one coach, every 30 seconds, players are moving. We're using all the baskets in the gym because the movement solution is going to be very different. Could be a pick and roll. Imagine you're playing with a 7-foot lob threat versus a much slower 6'6" roller. The guard's going to have to adapt and come up with a different movement solution. Another thing is in small group workouts, always changing the players instead of going positional specific, mixing the players together. Of course, things like nutrition, psychology, motivation, that's a good example of the importance of individual constraints, and as well simulated pressure. So things like 3 throws. So we could simulate the pressure of a 3 throw by every win in a small-sided game in practice. The basket only counts if they score 1 free throw. So as opposed to going to a traditional drill and shooting 10 free throws in a row with no consequence and no relevance to the game, we're trying to think of ways we can incorporate this into our practice design. Task, we're going to go into loads of these now, and an environment, culture that we create within our team, things like maybe we use music, etc. within the practice. And the best way to think about it is like a DJ booth. It's like these sliders. You're constantly manipulating these constraints up and down using different levels in your practice. So for me, a lot of people have confused the constraint-led approach for a games approach in terms of just play a game and hope the kids learn. For me, it's completely different, and this is not what this approach is about. It's about being highly specific and watching and observing the behaviors that emerge within your players and then manipulating constraints accordingly. Because if we just set up a random small-sided game, it's probably not going to be effective in causing different skills to emerge and players getting better. So if we just play small-sided games, it's probably going to be more fun for the kids than doing drills, but it's not going to be that much more beneficial from a skillful performance perspective. So the whole idea of constraints is going to be very specific. Now, we are going to be getting into all the videos of what this looks like. So this is finishing, and this was 3 years ago. Now I try and never do individual practices, but at the time this is what I had to do. So what you're going to see, coaches, is variability. The offensive player is driving constantly from a different location, and myself and the other coach were playing guided defense. We're moving in different ways. So what we're getting here is a lot of repetition without repetition. Perception and action is coupled, and he's perceiving affordances in different ways and self-organizing to come up with a new solution. And this player, he was actually one of the best players. He was 15 years old at the time, and he was one of the best players in the Italian U16 national team. And look how bad I made him look. And that is the whole reality within this approach. It can be ugly, it can be messy, and that's one of the things which has stopped coaches understanding more and actually adopting this into their practices. Now, a key question I get a lot, do any of you guys work with under 12s? Right? So the key question I get is, how does this stuff work with these players? The number one question I get. So what I do is I always show this with beginners too. And the key thing is using constraints to make it easier. So what we want to avoid doing is decomposing. And what I mean by that is removing the defense. So when we remove the defense, the movement solutions that emerge, firstly, they're not going to be realistic or representative because they're shaped by the defense in the game. So what we want to do is simplify it instead of remove. And how we do that is manipulating constraints on the defense. So what you can see here, I call this smile one-on-one. The offense is constrained to only finish in the smile, but the defense, they only have one step and they cannot jump. So what we're doing is we're making the level of challenge just right. We don't want it to be too difficult, but we don't want to be too easy. So as this video plays, you're going to see the player is problem solving and learning to move in loads of different ways. She's learning how to pivot. She makes some travels, which I called out and I officiated. So every situation, every layup is going to be different, but think about how much more beneficial this is than a layup line. It's highly representative of the game, every situation is different, and all the kids are playing. Now, coaches, what could we do if we had 2 baskets in the gym, and we wanted to do something like this and get loads of reps? What could the solution be if we only have 2 baskets? How can we change these constraints? Any ideas? Use the walls? Okay. If we have no baskets on the walls though?
No, you don't have them.
Okay.
You're using the...
Okay. I'm glad. I would avoid using the wall because if they're not on a basket, it's not representative, right? So we've got to use the baskets. What can we do? How can we change constraints?
Rotate, it's not just possible.
Okay, there's still, how can we do that? If we, let's imagine we have 12 players and we want to do something like this.
So you have 3 pairs in one group.
Great, really simple. Chaos. Change the number of players in the activity. One of the easiest ways we manipulate task constraints. So say we have 12 players, 2 rims. Maybe we have 3 defenders inside the paint. Same things, they have 1 step. 3 offense, always drive from a different location. Now they're active, none of the kids are waiting in lines, and there's loads of rep around rep. So that's the whole thing. Great answer. I want you guys to think about how can these things work in your own environments. Maybe, I know Adam, you're at a leading academy, that's going to be way too easy. So maybe it's a completely live defender. Maybe it's a 1 against 2. So we have another coach or a defender who's coming from a different angle trying to stab or play defense. It's 1 against 2. So think about how these constraints can be relevant within your own environment. For something like this, there's so many different things we could do. We can maybe manipulate constraints 20 different times. So what I'd like you to do now is just individually think about some different constraints, different ways we could change Smile 101. In 1 minute, we're going to share them. Go. And think as relevantly as you can for your setting and the players that you're working with. Anything you want. If you want to manipulate constraints, love it. Love it. Keep going. Love it, man. Love it. Fantastic. Love it. Okay, guys, I'm going to move on. Now, what I love is, what's your name, sorry? Paul. Paul said, what was it you said to me, the exact phrase? I can't remember, you said, my book, all of my books. Yeah, and that is exactly it, right? Because the creativity, James and I were speaking about this before, when we use the constraint-led approach, there's an abundance of different directions we can take practice in, and there's just so much we can do. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about this approach, the different directions we can take it. And that's where if you guys add your ideas to these things, it's going to be way better. And That's where if you, everything I show you today and on core, think about the perspective from what we just did in this activity. Don't just use the constraints, which I'm using, and I'm not going to have time even to show you all of them. Think about your own constraints based on what seems obvious and how it's relevant to the players you're with. Mike, can we come to you because you said something I loved? I think it was in the school.
Yeah, so I said, the way we recruit is just to reward players for finishing through contact, which is one of the things at young ages that
Sure.
very arms out there and they think, oh, you want to move away from it, sort of thing. So give them double points in the finish.
Great example. So what we could say is maybe if they do a contact finish and they really, create some type of bump against the defender and they score, it's double points. So we're not saying to do it every time because it might not be relevant, but if there's an affordance to do that and they do it and they're successful, they can get double points. And two, just keeping score, that is one of the most important things within this approach. Every single small-sided game we keep score, and I recommend that from beginners to pros. Everything we're doing, unless it's like a low practice day and we're trying to keep the intensity down. So we have a constraint, we're in the constraints, and with my players, if they don't communicate the score, the basket doesn't count. And it's really simple, but that's one of the most important things because we want to make the small-sided games representative. So if they're not representative and the players aren't competing, then the skills that emerge aren't going to be sticky and aren't going to transfer when it comes to the game. So that's a really important one. And also maybe changing the scoring. So if they use their weak hand as opposed to their strong hand, it's double points. That could be another example. Guys, what did you have?
I say give a point for defense if they can get blocks and like one.
Great example. Great example. That's really good. So if the defense block it, they get one, but that's going to change the offense. Now they're going to start faking more. And everything I'm doing, and especially when we get to the offense and defense, one of the best things about the CLA is we don't need offensive and defensive drills. It's simultaneous. If we just change the scoring and we say instead of the first player to 7 points on offense, the first player to 3 points wins, 1 point per stop. Now what are we going to see defensively? Wall-ups. Different techniques will emerge to try and negate the offensive player. So just changing the scoring to focus on the defense, and something else I do is offer 2 opportunities to win in each game. So the offense wins if they score 3 baskets, while the defense wins if they get 3 stops. So as opposed to only having one way to win a small-sided game, there are 2 different ways in which they can do it. And that's something really good to keep emphasizing offensive and defensive principles in play. Guys at the back, Marv, and what did you
So
say?
you cap the defender rather than rule up in front, maybe a bit inside. So you only probably use low ones,
Great.
chase down.
So what age do you think that could be most beneficial with? Have where the defense is constrained to play on the hip instead of in front?
What's great, 14 plus.
I'd actually say younger, Mark, because I would say if you do that at U12, U14, it's perfect because the challenge is just right for them. But they're still trying to steal the ball. I would say if they're older, I don't think it's as representative because they're not going to have that in the game, unless a player has a real difficulty finishing in that scenario where a defender's on their head. Okay? Now, key thing, and then we're moving on from this, guys, is if you start using the constraint-led approach, what you're probably going to have, and this is what I did for the first few years, is I had all my players using the same constraints at the same time, right? Where I've seen the huge results over the last 2 years is having the constraints individualized, where for one pair, they're playing with different task constraints compared to another pair. And now throughout my practices, this is where we're seeing the best thing because one of my assistants is going around, players are all playing with different constraints when the small-sided games. Now this is quite complex to do it, and it means you really, really have to know your players and understand them, and understand the things that they're not successful with or the things they are, and then design constraints accordingly to combat those things. Okay, so it's very specific.
Do you have a set of constraints that you use to start identifying so that you can then put those individual
Absolutely.
constraints
So what we do is we actually have 1-page printed paper with all the player names on the left, and then we have 2 task constraints for each player that are most relevant. So like for one player, he really over dribbled. So really simple. He had 2 dribbles every catch in every small-sided game, scrimmage within the practice. Okay? So it's like, this is why a lot of people think, when they don't know this and they don't understand it, they think it's generic. It's actually the complete opposite. Think about how generic the traditional approach in drills are. It's insanely generic where every player is the same. This is the opposite to that. Highly individualized, highly specific. Okay? So let's move on from task simplification. Another example, working with beginners, right? So I would do this warm-up. We did this with our Paris players. Instead of having the pop-up banners, we had more chairs. Now, kids, this is the great example of affordances. Kids saw the opportunity to call through the banners. Obviously in Paris, they would not be doing that as grown men and pros, right? But we did the exact same game. And it was the same results. Fun, it was a great way to warm up. Different movement solutions were emerging. Tag, then we added a dribble. Same thing, dribble tag. And obviously the objects provide different opportunities to hide, to chase, etc. And you can see this was an NBA camp. This is why I had to leave the NBA. Traditional, 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 traditional. Kids would go to these stations and hate it. They wouldn't be smiling. And then they come to my basket and they're doing stuff like this. Okay? It's a very, very stark contrast. Okay? Jungle shooting. So this is one of my favorite small-sided games for shooting, the task constraints. Any number of players, it works anywhere up to like 5 on 5. In this example, 3 offense, 2 defenders, 2 balls. This is a burst, so the offense always play offense for 45 seconds, the defense always play defense, and the offense can only shoot threes, but they can drive and pass, so they cannot score layups. Okay? Their goal is to score 8 threes within 45 seconds. But if the defense get 3 turnovers in 45 seconds, they win. So think about how realistic and how representative this shooting activity is compared to what they encounter in the game. Take something like spot shooting or form shooting, it contains none of that information. Right?
My last question.
Absolutely, Adam.
Is it the decision to shoot or is it the act of shooting?
In terms of what?
That is the environment. Like, when you decide to
Both.
shoot, you shoot.
Yeah, it's both.
And you don't change like how you shoot when you decide to shoot necessarily. Okay. Defenders being really close,
Sure.
it's a normal, wide open, extra pass shot.
Yeah,
When I decide to shoot, I shoot it. How
Yeah.
am I shoot?
yeah.
So when you like, okay, so rep shooting, you are getting that in.
I don't understand. Try and explain that.
Like,
Yeah.
I 100% agree with this, but
Sure.
you say there's no space for spot shooting.
Sure.
Um,
Okay, so basically,
I'm
how would I see
practicing-
spot
I'm
shooting,
practicing
right?
shooting.
Got it. Okay.
I do shooting games.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
So,
I'm
this is-
practicing the act of shooting.
Absolutely.
Whereas this is, you are shooting, but you're also really repping the
Sure.
decision making with the shot.
Sure.
But this shooting, the actual act of shooting is a very closed thing. right?
It's very
When I
specific.
shoot, I shoot.
It's very specific,
I
right?
don't change a lot.
So,
how I shoot.
this is what the research tells us. From spot shooting, when it actually comes from spot shooting having an impact on shooting performance in the game, no transfer. And I'll send you the studies on it, okay? Where could it help? Confidence. Just for a player to see the ball going through the net. So I would never do spot shooting with players in a practice. If they want to do it, totally cool. They can do that. But especially with my players, both in Paris and prep, instead of just spot shooting the same thing over and over, they would be changing range and location the whole time. So as opposed to always being, because the problem is as soon as they're in the same spot, it becomes mindless and they're not having to adapt. So what that leads to is a player could shoot 70% spot shooting, and we actually see that in the NBA, but then in the game they're a 30% shooter, and that's why. So the simplest thing we could do to make it variable is shoot, and always, even if it's just one step, change your location and range. And now, the benefit that you get from that, just from the one step, is enormous, versus if you're always in the same spot over and over and over again. Now, unfortunately, I don't have time to, because shooting is such a specific one, and I think that's one of the areas where it can be hardest to understand how the CLA can work in shooting. I almost need a separate clinic to do that. And I also use differential learning, which is the other methodology, which is where you might have seen it on my social media, shooting from different stances, things like that. Essentially, I think, especially with shooting, it's so individualized. And if you were to see the top 5 players in the NBA at all time, their techniques would be wildly different. And this is why, you know, when we come in and we try and solve the problem for them, teaching them biomechanics, it doesn't make sense. So after this, Adam, just remind me and I can send you more, and I've answered this question specifically, but if I go off track and answer it properly, I'm just not going to be able to get through everything else today, okay? Okay, so take something like jungle shooting, coaches. We're just going to talk about these now as opposed to doing it reflectively. What else could we change within jungle? What other constraints could we manipulate specifically?
Type of closeout.
Type of closeout. So we could get our defense in on this. So something we do is a red bib is a shooter, hot, cold bib non-shooter. So we could score defense. So if the hot shooter can get a catch and shoot 3 off, the defense get -1. So every time they're trying to force the hot shooter to at least shoot a slide 3 or drive. That's why that would be complex. I can show you that later. Number of players. Great example. Younger kids, instead of 3s, shoot outside the paint. Can't go inside the paint, but shoot mid-ranges. We could change the advantage, 4 against 2, make it easier. More basketballs, less basketballs. We could say 2 defenders play outside the 3-point line, 2 defenders play inside. We could say offense, alternate between shooting a mid-range and a 3, so it's even more variable. So again, unlimited options for what we can do in jungle. Now, looking at how this affects player development, this is a great quote which comes from Miles Davis, talking about categories of music. Miles was famous as a performer because he drastically changed. He went from playing traditional jazz to completely different things. And what I think I see in basketball is a lot of skills being categorized. For me, there's no such thing as a technical or tactical skill. No such thing. There's no such thing as a micro skill. And additionally, where we see skills being categorized the most, it's in things like passing, finishing, shooting. A lot of my small-sided games, yes, we might have a shooting emphasis, we might have a finishing focus, but everything is typically happening at the same time. Now, there will be more affordances to shoot or finish, but they're probably still going to be dribbling. They're probably still going to have a passing option. So the game itself requires all these things to be done together. The traditional approach has isolated all these things. We've looked at skills in very separated boxes. Instead, we want everything to come together. And my book is coming out in October, and this is one of the things I've written. Player development is not about teaching moves and teaching techniques. And I think when we understand the CLA, we understand this. But instead, what we want to do is identify the rate limiters. So these are the things which players are struggling with individually, but stops them being functional. So finishing through contact, like you said, Mike, that could be a rate limiter. So we identify it, we create an environment to work on that. So the traditional approach is players will do the same, and coaches have a curriculum of the things they want to teach and the moves they want to get through. But instead, players might not need half those things. So instead, we want to see what can players do, and what is it that's holding them back from being more successful as a performer. Okay, now this is the essence of the manual. I had to go through all of that because many times coaches, we find it difficult to understand offense and defense if we view basketball through a traditional lens. So ecological dynamics, it completely changes the way we understand offense. You guys will probably have seen this before. This is a attentional test done by Harvard. So counting the number of passes performed by the team in white. Now what happens is people get so distracted counting the passes that they don't identify the gorilla right now. Okay? Now what this relates to is how players have played offense and defense for the last 100 years. Game models. You must pass and cut. You must run motion offense. You must run this set play. Ecological dynamics tells us that the ability to be successful is based on acting on affordances, opportunities for action. And a lot of these affordances are natural scoring opportunities, which players miss when they're running a motion offense or a set play. And I see it all the time, especially in youth basketball, where kids get so focused on running pass and cut, that a space to drive, a space to do something that creates an advantage in a way easier way, they're not aware of it. So instead, we've got to think, okay, how can we design offense and defense in a way where players can be more natural and they're not constrained by the need to run these very rigid patterns of play. So principles of play, and it begins with conceptual offense. These, for me, are the key things of any offense. And we're going to be looking at what this is and how it relates on the court. And for defense, it's just vice versa, the opposite. So what it begins with is shot selection. So when you hear me talk about gold, silver medal, gold, silver, bronze medals, this is it. So everything we're trying to do is a gold and silver medal. Even at under 14s, gold medals at all costs. Okay, we're trying to get players to go for the most efficient shots within the offense. Defensively, it's the opposite. We're trying to obviously force heavily contested shots, especially mid-ranges. Dominoes. This is a principle of play. So the aim of offense, it's not to run pass and cut, it's not to run a motion, it's to create an advantage. And as soon as we have that advantage, we are trying to end the offense with a great shot. By applying the three concepts of dominoes, it allows our players to be aware of the different ways we can end those advantages efficiently. So this is what we're going to look at, and I'm going to show you some small-sided games with different constraint manipulations. So this is an example of what dominoes is. I always use fun videos, and in our film studies we have like 100 different dominoes clips during a season. This is an advantage. So dominoes are triggered. How can we keep the dominoes falling until we get a great shot? So we're going to be looking at how we can create some small-sided games to get players really successful playing with dominoes. And the idea is we reverse engineer. So I always start with dominoes first, and then we work backwards. Then it becomes a case of how can we create dominoes in the half court, and that's what gets us the triggers and things like this. This would be another example, one-on-one closeout burst. So this would be more of a player development. So we got one player always on offense, respecting individual constraints, playing against different defenders, always changes location. The pass always comes from a different place, and the offense is constrained to only scoring a three or rim. So we remove the offense, the chance to shoot mid-ranges. Okay? Another example, 2-on-2, dominoes on neutral. If we give the advantage, they're just playing. Can they convert that advantage with an efficient gold medal? If we don't give dominoes and it's neutral like now, this is when we need a trigger. So this is what we're going to be looking at a lot today. Can we just play immediately with these triggers and get to trigger some different spacings as opposed to needing to run whole offenses? These are basically my one-pagers. So what I do is think about the principles of play that we want, and then we put it down on paper. So the idea is within your clubs, every age group, you should have the same vision. So as opposed to every different age group working completely differently, there's a shared theory for what we want to do and what it should look like in the most senior team. I'll talk about the green, yellow, red later. So then yellow is triggers, red is our sets. And then getting onto our defense, it's exactly the same. Same language, we just look at the opposite. What can we do to prevent the offense in these scenarios? Okay. We're going to head down to court now, and I'm going to basically show you how we can use ecological dynamics, and specifically the CLA, to develop some of these principles for players from under 12s to senior highest level of basketball. Okay? Great stuff. You are trying to use the advantage and get a great shot. Exactly. So you're just trying to drive, kick, pass, get the best shot you can. We don't need offense. We just need great spacing. So change the plays on offense. Let's get a new 4 out. Same constraints. Okay, ready? Go. 7, 5. Good. Next defense. Next new defense. New defense. 6, 5, 4. Excellent. That is a ghost cut. That's what I call it, a ghost cut. So again, instead of me showing the ghost cut, I've been waiting 5 minutes for that to happen. And we got there. I was going to be patient, I was willing to wait another 5. So, something good happens. That's when I give it a name, and I use a name that's catchy. A ghost cut, it says what it is. Being sneaky, disappear, appear somewhere scary on the rim. Okay? That is a great solution for ending dominoes. So again, if you want to, there's so many constraints now that we can say ghost cuts work double. If this was my practice, I would be making sure they keep the score. It's a clinic, they're doing an amazing job with all the information I'm following them and so on. Your practice is going to make sure you score all the time. Okay? I'm just going to show you a few more constraint ideas. It's not going to be perfect because we've got so many things. Guys, every catch now, you have to play in 0 seconds. So what I mean by that is you've got to shoot, drive, or pass in 0. If you catch the ball and you hesitate and you hold it, it's a turnover and the next defense come on. And the defense will get the point. Right? So when we looked at the classroom about principles of playing the dominoes, we've already covered 2. 0 seconds now and 4 is lava. So we'll get to the third and second question, Josh. Can't fake. You're going to shoot, drive, or pass in 0. Okay? Ready? Go! Beautiful! Ready? 1, 2, excellent! So again, that was a great solution, it was a great decision. There was a turnover and I wanted that. It was the right idea. So, you've got to give these guys credit, and I'm just being direct. They had no clue how to play with a ball 10 minutes ago. Not a single clue. Now, in the space of a few minutes, because they're hardly playing, because I'm walking to the clinic, some better things are emerging. Now, what we can do, change the spacing. So you might have noticed they've always been in the same space. Again, too much information, I didn't hit it. I could say you must be in a different space every time. So as opposed to wings, corners, maybe we have top, wing, corner, corner. Maybe we use the weak side bumper spot as an additional space. What I often do is say every thread has different spacing. Advanced, but it forces different domino patterns. If we keep them here the whole time, the same things will happen, right? Okay, let me show you. Imagine this is too difficult, especially if it's like under 12s. What we can do, maybe we remove one defender. Maybe we say the defense can only use one hand. We would also not say you can only shoot threes. Unrealistic, right? Especially because we don't have the lower rims. And that's just the sad reality. In Europe, we can do it because it's always the lower rims. I don't think they're here yet, right? No? So, what we could do is for younger kids say, alright, start outside the lava, but you can step in and shoot a mid-range to end dominoes. However, if you don't get that shot, then you're going to escape the lava again. Okay, so therefore, instead of all of them staying in the lava and having really bad spacing, we can still get these habits emerging. Guys, awesome job. Please give me a 2-side. That's a 45 corner offensive defense and an offensive defense here with the ball single side. Just right there. Yeah, 3 on 3. So, this is now a little bit easier. We're going to see how they rotate on defense. So now we're getting on defensive principles of play. If the aim of the offense is to keep the dominoes, the aim of the defense is to neutralize dominoes. So, guys, defensively, you win and you get a point if you're able to get back to neutral in this 3 on 3. So if you get back in front of the offense and they stop dominoes, you win. Offense, you're trying to keep the dominoes. Josh starts with the ball. He passes when I look, and it's right here. High five. Run me your name. Daryl, Nairo, high five. Josh, come and get it. And you're playing your advantage. You're trying to keep the dominoes. You can score, do whatever you want. You start with the ball, Josh. Pass it to me. Yep. That's it. Oh, that's okay. Try again. Doesn't matter. Now you know what we're doing. Okay, so I'm not going to say anything now. Let's just see what happens over the next minute or two. Okay? Here we go. Second rep. Stay for 2 and then we rotate. 2 reps and then you guys get it. I love the fact you took that layup because you had that on the first rep and you missed it. Excellent. Okay, change rolls. 5, 4, 3, 2. I never tell players how to rotate. It wastes time. Gives you too much information. They figure it out. Okay, they have to figure it out. First team to 6 points wins in your teams. Neutral. Lost the dominoes. Defense, win. Second rep. Stay for 2. Stay for 2. Excellent job. Beautiful. Coaches, what did I do a little bit differently on the second rep? My hands thrown it out. Manipulating advantage. Younger kids, especially like under 12s, that I want to work on that include bigger advantages. If they can do it and it's easier, smaller advantages. Maybe you want to push your best player a very small advantage every time. Okay? Now think as we're doing this, don't just use these ones. Think about all the different ways you can change this. Okay? Loads of different ways. Guys, now it's going to be spacing wise, 2 side. You're going to play continuously with me. So that means defense, if you get the ball or it's neutral, pass it wherever I am standing, and I'm going to do this. And you must high five again. Offense, if you score, you keep the ball, find me, come get it, and the defender must always high five. So it's going to be a little bit more continuous as opposed to stop-start, and then we sub after 4 bursts. Okay, ready? What are we playing to? 6. Yeah. I'm here. Oh, no, your ball, my man. His ball. Ready, go! Yes. Okay, hold. This is exactly what I want. Guys, hold for a second. And this is what happens when they go on the traditional rifle drills. It's not if every question I use. Okay? Drills, there's no problem with it. They're not becoming adaptive performers because they're always being told what to do. Okay? Question. It's basketball rules. Normal basketball rules. Okay? Change percent. If you do defense, you get the ball, you do the offense. Okay? Reset. Here we go. Do whatever you want now. Ready? Boom. Zero. Didn't say score. Basketball's down. Neutral. Defense wins. Defense is low. Defense is full. Go. Let's go. Okay, hold. Excellent. Change rolls. Ready?
So if I just pick 2 bad blocks, you might be able to twice. I've done it for years. so it must have been too bad stuff. It was the two just on the side.
Continuously and keep changing constraints. We saw a few catches in the lava where they're in the mid-range. So maybe we go back to that constraint, say, oh, catch in the mid-range. So what this approach requires is you actually have to know more about basketball to do this well. And it's something really funny, because a lot of people over the years think that I just roll the ball out and let it play. And it's the complete opposite. You have to be so attuned to what they're doing and what's going on to keep changing constraints. Because if we're not doing that, it's just a game's approach, and that's pretty useless, like I explained. So now we get our first offensive principle of play, which is a peel switch. So this is one way that we could neutralize the dominoes. So guys, defensively, this is what we're looking at now. So this is how we could stop dominoes if we're on D. The advantage comes. So Roman, you're coming. Now, what's happening right now? What's your name? Say leadership voice. Zavi. Zavi is what I call the mid. The most important guy. The mid. So, Zavi, Roman's driving. You are going to yell switch and help as far outside the smile as you can. My man, as soon as you hear switch, your drop through is done. Luca, you are dropping, and we are peeling all the way over to this 45 to try and take it away. If the dominoes stop and you get back to neutral, it's done. You get to play offense. Okay? So this is a peel switch, a principle of play. Loads of different ways we can do it. Okay? Ready? Boom. Excellent go stuff. So better offense. Great go stuff against dominoes. Now the defense knows that happened. They have to adapt to take it away. Second rep. C2. Excellent. Hold. Look at the difference. Luca, without me telling him, he adjusted his positioning and he took away the go stop. My man, what's your name? Kristen, you did a great job reminding him of your verbals too. So, loads with a peel switch, I would also go 4 against 4. So for instance, guys, just give me an extra offense and defense out real quick. Offense all starts here, we drive from different places. So as soon as I put my hand up, my man will touch, and then you guys play. As soon as you see him move Toby, right, you can drive. As soon as you see him move. Ready? Okay, hold. Right, so help off the strong side. And this is a good example of principles of play. That necessarily isn't a really bad hit. Maybe Roman is a non-shooter. That could be a great solution for Christian to help. And then maybe the peel switch is just here with these two. We don't even need them. Maybe though if he's a shooter, that's probably not going to be a successful solution. It's easy through. If it happens, we talk about it. Again, it's different for different players. So this is the very basics of where I always start, through the game itself. And traditionally we see things like a shell drill used for key defense. I just don't use that because it's not knowledge in the game. It's knowledge about the game. Huge difference. I don't care about knowledge about the game. I want to see what they do in the game itself. The only way we can do that is playing. It's the only way, right? We could, of course, show certain concepts, like I did with the MIG and the peel switch. That's no problem. I show it and then we do it. So that the development knowledge of the concept in the game itself. What questions do you guys have on dominoes and the defensive Absolutely.
Having constraints, would you just make it a turn over if it's on the path?
Exactly. That's a great question. They're making good decisions in terms of seeing what the player can pass not always accurate. And that's just where I would not decompose, like initially I would be tempted to see that and do a drill to work on passing on there. But then it's easy. And the same problems on the road. The reason the passes are not successful is because they're finding it difficult to pass around defenders. If I remove the defenders, I'm not going to solve the problem, right? What I could do is maybe simplify the task a bit more. So we could say, if I'm seeing problems with driving kick, Toby, let's just say you drive at baseline. Joe, you're offense. Everyone else to step out quickly. Sorry, I'm defense here. Joe, sorry, go back. You're going to drive aggressively to Toby. You're going to drive aggressively to the block. When you hit the block, pass to Joe. Joe, you can only space between the free throw line and the corner and defense. Go. Oh, you play. We didn't play one-on-one. I didn't describe it well. So what I'd see the problem, and then we might go to a small-sided game where we focus on it more, and we amplify the problem, and then I go back to this. So my practice is non-linear. I jump in different directions. I see a problem, I go off course, we work on it, and then we go back to it. I believe that progressions are the enemy of coaching. And I don't feel that progressions reduce performance. And this is something I see a lot in Europe when I do this, especially in Italy, in Spain, coaching top progressions. 1-0, 1-1, 2-0, 3-3. I'm going to do the opposite. Non-linear. I'd rather start with the problem and then go to something very specific and one-on-one if we need to. And obviously this we could change. We could have a defender on the pass or loads of different things we can do. Alright, let's get to transition. Guys, can we just make sure we're equal white and black? Make the teams, make sure same players, white jerseys, same player, black jerseys. Go, make the teams. 10 seconds. Okay, coaches, principles of player transition. There's going to be like lighting every time. Then you will shape it more. It's going to look messy right now, but the most important thing is just the intent to play fast. Instead of getting the ball and walking, then jogging, then running, boom, we are off straight away. I do a lag-free reaction into a bolt. A bolt. Run the score at the speed of using bolt. It's as simple as that. Guys, it will be 4-4 with an advantage start. You're going to play here. After that, one trip up the floor and one trip back. So it's half floor, trip, finito. Keep score first to 10. If you score within 5 seconds of getting the ball in transition, double points. 4-4, yeah. One person each team goes for. I will give a high five start when you look down. Okay? Ready? Play. Go, 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 go! Whites get the first offense. So, coaches, naturally the dominoes actually pretty good. So I don't use transition drills. What you're seeing right now, tricks. Could be 2 tricks, 1 trick, 5 tricks. Depends on the age and what the intent is. Okay, ready? Start the pass. Yeah. Okay, now guys, if you get the rebound, you are the point guard. You are not allowed to pass to a teammate in your half. Not allowed. You pass over the half, great. But let's say, Christian, you get the rebound here. You have to turn your ball over or pass to a teammate over there. Not in this half line. Okay? Also, we're going to add 2 more trips. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. Double. Why, coaches? 2 wasn't enough to shake the transition up to 1. So I want to give a 4 to see maybe have a 3rd and 4th one. Can we see some good transitions? Roman, you start right here. Ready? Come on, stay in the front. Start.
It's good thing.
Oh, back.
Hey, great.
Think about how much more advanced it is to develop skill players versus running passing time. Okay, so it's just really simple one-on-ones and dominoes. At U16, that's when I want to get into more triggers. So that could be a get, a pick and roll, an up-ball swing. And then the idea is to get neutral in transition, trigger to dominoes. It's as simple as that. So it's green, transition. Yellow, when we have it be a green. Red, when we stop, it's a dead ball. Red is the only time we want to set play. That's it. Green, yellow, no sets. We don't play fast. The worst transition offense at any level in any league is always far better than the best hardcore offense team. In any league, you look at the BPL and you'll see. And that's the reality. The reality is the game is easier when we play fast. Because of traditional thinking, especially in Europe, set plays all the time. All that does is it removes opportunities to play fast. Especially in the UK. The players can be so good when we take the most of our strengths and play fast. Okay? Alright, guys, what did we say? What were we playing until? 10. If you get one score within 5 seconds of getting the ball on a make or a miss, you win automatically. The game's over. Don't need to get to 10. Coaches, this is the golden snitch from Harry Potter. Harry gets the snitch, he wins the game. Game over. So if there is one behavior I want to be very aggressive facilitating, I usually go on the snitch. Which is what we're doing now. We clear on the snitch. Okay? Continue from the scores are on. Okay? Alright, come over here. Remember, 5 seconds, I'll give you the countdown. So if you score within it, it's done. Alright, you get a piggyback ride. Losers, give the winner a piggyback ride front and back. Go!
Oh, yeah.
outlet on the point guards. There was no point guard outlet. Whoever got the rebound was the point guard. That's one of the most important principles. We had round-free reactions, okay? So the intent was there. We had kick aheads. So all these things are in shape. Then what I would do is I would talk through them and give them the terminology so they have an awareness of what it is. Right? So maybe they make a great pass up at the ball. I'd say great kick ahead pass. We'll give it a name. Now transition defense, I might not have time, so I need to get the triggers. I'll do the same thing when we're talking about transition. The most important principles when we stop ball early, we have ball and basket at the same time. So the player closest to the rim, boom, they're going to be the nick. And then if you have the basket, another player goes ball. So what I would do is play with 3 lines. The first team to 10 points wins, or if they lose, if one team loses 3 lines, the other team wins. If the team does not get ball and basket, they lose a line. And that's it. Then we get the trans-D concept going, and then I'll probably go to something more specific, a different two-sided game, where we can roll and ball. Now, on mates, it's a little bit different. What I talk about is crash guys or get back guys. So with all my teams, again, because we have a very analytic approach, we crash heavily. So often we might even have all 5 guys crash. It's not tagging up, we're just rebounding. So again, we can say you get 3 points or enough to rebound, to crash. If we're not crashing, we're going to be getting back, especially in the corner. So what we talk about especially is if we're standing in the corner and a player shooting on the shots, we want to be getting back immediately. We're not going to crash. So I might design a 1-on-1 or 2-on-2 with that, where it's a little bit more scripted, but it's still live. Alright, and that would be our trans. Now, triggers. What trigger would you guys like to see? We've got loads of options. We've got gets, we've got pick and roll, we've got optimal screens. What would you guys like to see? What would be the most relevant? Like? Yeah, I like get because I think it's good for senior and youth. Any objections to gets?
No, if you can squeeze in an off ball, I'd love to see that.
Excellent. Okay, guys, I'm making this quick. So if I have the time, I can just 5-on-5 immediately. Imagine if you've just done 5-on-5. The constraints, you must want to get before you score. And I'm just going to, this is how I describe the get. Ron, can you grab the ball, please, real quick? Thanks, man. Come to the wing and just be as big as you can, post up on the wing. Perfect. Guys, one defender, look at the starting. Exactly, right here. So guys, this is a get. Passing the ball here. I'm coming to get it back. And then we're looking to create dominoes off this. But anything could happen as you do this. I don't want you to do the same thing every time. So maybe I can reset to get dominoes. Right? Maybe as we're running the get, Sally's coming over the flank, maybe I can cut. Right? That's like a Roman, maybe you cut. Maybe instead of you giving it to me, you keep it. Right? So I want you to be as creative as you can. We're going to play this 2-on-2 both ends. And you have a 5-second clock off the get, only shooting 3s already. You figure out where to run the get, you can do it in any location around the ring. Go, play. That's fine. Good solution, Roman. Awesome. He didn't need the get. He found a great solution. Oh, 1-2-1-2s, Roman. Only 3s, it's fine. Gold and silvers. I don't know what the rotation is. Quick. Offense, defense. You must run the get in a different location every time. Go, man. Dribble anywhere you want to find out. Defense, go. Run the get, pause, and then we play. Go. You guys can run it at the same time, rotate off or whatever you want. Go. think I'm going to get on the wing. So I'm prefer you have everyone active versus waiting. Now, I would like them to be aware of the pitch and slip. And that might not acknowledge if they're going to show it. So now, this is how I show it. Guys, I'm going to show you one solution, but it's not the only solution. So keep doing the other crazy things that you are doing. This is just one thing which would be effective for you. Joe, I'm going to be you, Roman, you're the passer. So Roman's giving me the ball, I'm going to pitch it early and slip as early as I can. So I'm trying to create a 2-on-1 as early as I can so that I have it. This could be good, but don't do it every time. Keep looking for the other ways to create on those two, not just that. Go, play. So you see what I did? I can say, you must do this every time. I can go with it, this now I can prevent it again. Then we use the terminology. So that back pocket, and now from here we play 2 against 1. Either one of us can score. So you must go under, you must twist, and then it's 5-2-1. Go, play. So twist to punish the under.
We do a lot of trip time and stuff. I do less of breakdowns. I think this year I'll go back to the 3-on-3.
The defense is also conceptual. If there's a non-shooter, under is probably going to be getting better than going over. But maybe an over once in a while is disruptive, Because if we're always going under, guess what? It's predictable. Predictable is the enemy of a good defense. So my philosophy is constantly changing coverages. You know, within a certain sense, we might have one player on a scout at a higher level. We always want to do something specific. Mike James in EuroLeague is an example. Our coverage against him would be always go under. We are never going to go under against Mike James. But obviously against other players, the more varied we can be, the harder it is for the offense to respond. If all the other teams are practicing traditionally, then think about what an advantage this is, because they're not going to be used to it, especially at higher levels, right? Now, loads more we could have done with that. We could have added extra players, made it 3-on-3, get to dominoes. We could have made it continuous 2-on-2, always to a different location. We could have played Hitman. That is, one stop out of each coverage wins the game. One stop switch, one stop under, one up over, you win. Or first to 8, so there are 2 ways to win it. So again, lots and lots of different options within our game. Question, man? Great question. Shot selection from the very beginning is key. So, gold and silver medals in everything we do, and I'm not allowing them to shoot the mid-range. The reason why is that when they can shoot the mid-range, they settle for it, and they stop being aggressive going for the rim. Younger age groups, no problem, shoot it. But even then, what I notice now is so many players are not skilled finishing and shooting threes because the mid-range bails them out. Now with my team, it's the same with Paris and Prep, we don't shoot mid-ranges. The exception, last 6 seconds of the shot clock, we will take a mid-range, but not a long one. Because I'd rather stay behind the 3 and get an extra point. A paint mid-range we take, or if it's a tied game, 82-82, and it's the last shot, well that's more efficient than shooting a 3 for 1 possession. Right? Okay guys, we're going to go 4-on-4. Same things we did at the beginning, same advantage start. Now, if you're neutral and you don't have dominoes when you arrive after transition, get. If you don't run a get when you're neutral and there's no intent to run a get on the other side, so get any moment you're neutral 4 against 4. Whites on offense first. Right here. We got this basketball. Coaches, now everything's coming together. All the principles of play we've looked at. Dominoes, stopping dominoes. Gets, stopping gets. Trans-O, trans-D, if we did it, if we had time. So this now is our principle of play. This is why I have a big problem with drills and things like 3-man weave. Not only is it because there's no decision making, but more importantly, there's no principles of play. That's the real problem with it. Everyone says decision making, and yeah, I agree, but everything we do, I want it to be in context of what we're looking to do in the game. And our principles of play. Mike? Exactly. Green is transition. Look to be in green any moment. Yellow is the get, the trigger. Red we haven't had time to get to. That could be a set play. I might show you, maybe in 3 minutes, I'll show you an example. Okay? Alright, Josh. Full court. 4 trips. Yes, same stuff with the hands. Half court, trip, sub. First into 10 wins. Toby.
Do we have 5 seconds? No, then it comes to rebound.
Yes, we can play with that. Absolutely.
Same principle, Luca.
Cover. Advantage. Coaches, that's the most important thing. You have to be obsessive with that with your players. Advantage, dominoes or no dominoes? No dominoes is neutral, run a trigger. No random one-on-one when they get older, okay? But obviously at the beginning I just had to do it because I couldn't be like dominoes or triggers, too much information, right? Okay, black ball on this ring, here we go. Quick. Here we go. Ready? I'll give you the advantage, guys. Could be us here, Josh, it could be you too on the wing. And we got to be ready to give them an option. Maybe too, and coaches, this is getting more advanced, we screen to get another player into it. Luca, go on again, go on again. And now we have more, I call that a support trigger to make it an easier catch. Could be a flare screen, could be a screen away, right? Okay, play from there, last one, play from there. Go, there, go, 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 go. There's screens. Out of bounds, back ball. Sideline. Coaches, I have no sideline or baseline out of play so you have 14 and under. Just triggers. Find a way to get to the trigger. Every time you want to be able to use the real basket. Very difficult to create dominoes here. What we could say, you must have at least 1 foot on or inside the lava. This is a much better position for the get versus here, where the defense can just go under. If you're not here on your get, it's a turnover. James, do you think I have 3 minutes or not?
Yeah.
Okay, red offense, just because we didn't get to it. I'm going to show you a stack, aka Spain pick and roll. Guys, this we are only doing on a dead ball, on a substitution or foul, not on green or yellow. White's right here, black's on defense. Toby, hand it. Roman, come right here. Go at the elbow. Space out. Alright, this is stack. I'm going to do a round stack. Joe, you're going to come down, set a round. Right here. Roman, you're going to come off this. You're going to work your way back up. Roman, as you're coming, you're going to flip at the last moment of the pick. Right here, pick and roll, freeze. As this happens, wait. You're going to be back here, Joe. You're going to be back here. Anything can happen. You could reject or you could use it, Toby. It's going to be back screen the picker. So Roman, you're going to set the pick. You're going to roll, use this back screen that Joe's setting for you. Go to the rim. Joe, you're getting out of face opposite. So, you might have a shot. Joe, you might be able to go support quickly and look to get your shot. So, I'm not expecting this to transfer now, but this is how I show a set play when you use 16s up, not 5 on 0. We do it live, I show it, and then we just play it. Gonna be messy, but then we just, we go from there. So we're gonna begin with stack, that's the call, stack. Everyone echo the call, only on red offense. The rest of the time we're green yellow. You might not get a chance to run this again unless it's a foul or a suck. Go, play. Excellent. Excellent ball. Beautiful. Excellent. 5, 4. Out of bounds. Black ball. Subs in. Black ball. Here. Quick. This is trip 1. not going that way. Not going that way. Hey, stop. One, two, three. One second. I'm just going to say something. Okay, hold. Freeze. Coaches, I had to stop that for your benefit. Why was that a good decision to be in green? Advantage. If they didn't have that, what do you think I was looking for them to do?
From the stack.
Stack. Because it was red, it was a sub. They didn't have the intent because no one communicated it. What would have been even better is if they yelled stack, noticing it was red, but then they didn't do it because they had an advantage, the set wasn't needed. Guys, do you notice the difference there? So I yelled sub, I was looking to see if one of you guys would yell stack, but what you did anyway was great. Okay, it says white hole down here, for me. It's not a solid, white hole. Oh my God, think about the possibilities. We would have like 10 triggers at this age group, and obviously we'd have way more principles of play. And this is why I have a big problem with the traditional approach. It's just fluff. We don't have time for zigzag drill layup lines, 3-man uniform shooting. There are just things which are way more important, and if our job as coaches is to help them fulfill the potential. That's it, to the best of their abilities. And I believe we are holding them back by doing all these traditional drills. And we owe it to them to create the best learning experience that we can provide. And they are probably really tired and gassed, and in a normal practice they'll be doing 3 times of that because we're playing, right? Obviously I would not be stopping in a normal practice, but still it's representative and it's exactly like a game. And we saw some really good things starting to happen. Let's give them a big round of applause. Make myself available for the next half an hour in the coffee bar, in the Surrey Sports Bar. Any question you have, you can come speak to me, because sometimes it's easier I know to ask questions privately versus in front of a group, okay? www.conceptualoffense.com. I have all these ideas on more on that site. My Instagram and my Twitter is just Alex Sarama. If there's a question you have which you didn't get a chance to ask today, please do message me. I would love nothing more than for this approach to be used within the UK and see what it could do for British basketball, okay? I want to say a huge thank you to my good friend James for organising this. I never thought I would get a chance to do a clinic in my hometown in my life, and this is actually my first ever event really in British basketball. So, I'm very grateful to James and the BCA UK for inviting me to do this. So, James, thank you. And thank you guys.
Thank you, and I'm not clapping here, but can we give a big thank you to Alex as well? He's taken time out of his busy schedule to come back and do one in his hometown. We're excited to have you here. Hopefully we can start some stuff together in the future. Like Alex said, I'm going to be up there as well. We'll be up in the coffee free to come up and ask. Right? Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you today. Thank you. Good job. Kaylin's your coach, right? Kaylin, your coach. Coach Kaylin.